It's time for the Court Report, our bi-weekly segment with the Upper Midwest Law Center. They are a nonprofit public interest law firm on the front lines, dedicated to defending constitutional freedoms and the rule of law.
Just love having him on the program. He is Doug Seaton, founder, president of the Upper Midwest Law Center, the guy who knows what's going on. Doug, thanks for being here.
Glad to be with you again, Al. Good morning.
I don't know how you sleep at night, quite frankly. Every time I turn on the TV, there's some other thing, and I'm like, God, I wish I could talk to Doug about this today, and we will. The one that I want to talk to you about, if we can start with, this next legislative session starts in less than 2 weeks, right? It's the 17th. Yes. As we're going into that, I don't know if it's going to be gun laws. I don't know if it's going to be the fraud that we're talking about. I don't know if it's going to be now the ICE people. I don't know what the main topic is, but I know something you're dealing with, this omnibus bill thing, could still blow this whole thing out of the water if it keeps going on. And for folks who don't know, the Midwest Gun Caucus, they didn't like something that got in that last omnibus bill, and they got a hold of the Upper Midwest Law Center, and they said, hey, Doug, they can't throw us in there with Planned Parenthood or, paid family leave. And you're like, yeah, that's the way I read it too. And you got it won, right? I mean, you won that lawsuit.
Yes, we did.
But what's weird to me is that doesn't blow the whole thing out of the water. It gets them out, which I'm sure they're happy about. But how much of that, the rest of that omnibus bill is still going strong? And when does it collapse? And if it collapses, then what do we do?
Unfortunately, you're right on those counts. It is still standing, even though the judge said the whole omnibus tax bill is unconstitutional. Mm-hmm. But as we talked about earlier in an earlier session, what he then said is, but I've only got one plaintiff in front of me, and they've only got one issue themselves. So my role as a judge is to give them a full remedy, and I can do that by excluding and severing that position and declaring it to be wrong, the binary trigger ban. And so that's what he did. But he did invite all the rest of the state to rise up and challenge the same statute. And this is a Democrat-appointed judge. We're very glad that he heard this and did the right thing under legal precedent. And we're very hopeful we're going to be at the appeals court very shortly with the same argument that the whole thing should go down. And the appeals court has a right to do that. We also have other cases. We're about to inaugurate another case or two that will be part of that lineup of people saying, we want all of this bill down too. Now, you and I know people get retaliated against, so we've got a lot of people we hope could join us in the initial case, decide not to, but now we have some who are willing to step forward because we've got that initial decision. And we've got United Healthcare fighting essentially the same fight. So we have the chance to get this whole thing knocked down and change the way the legislature does business, as I would put quotes around it. It's the wrong way to do it. It's unconstitutional. They shouldn't do it. We need them to pass bills one at a time so we all know what they're up to.
See, but this is why this year is so telling, and you've got to get this done sooner than later. I know it's not in your time schedule, but this session especially, when everybody in the legislature is going to run for their job, right? Both branches, they're going to run for their job. And we have such big things, gun control and all the other stuff we talked about, coming up. This is going to be one of those years, and I think I just talked about that with Senator Putnam earlier today. This is one of those years where they will pass stuff that almost means nothing because they can hide behind it. Oh, I had to vote for that because it had this in there, but I really wanted that in there. This is exactly why we need this to be one topic, one rule when it comes down to this important stuff. Can you get this done, Doug, in 2 weeks?
Sure hope so. We sure hope so. Now, if all goes well, we could get a decision from the appeals court before the end of the session. Now, but that's very tight, and they don't always cooperate with us or make the decisions in the way we hope they will. But we're very hopeful that, at least for now, we can say this precedent sits there. The legislature knows they're under scrutiny by the appellate courts as they sit down at their desks. So I hope this is going to make a difference, even now.
Can we play it out if that were to happen? And what I don't understand, I get if you passed a law, marijuana, something or other, okay, that's not the law. They're going to have to go get it. I get that. But some of this is money. The Paid Family Leave Act, there's money going out the door as we speak. If they said that doesn't count, it didn't pass on its own, does it just stop? How do you unwind that if it started?
It's challenging. Our view will be that's your problem,
I
state
see.
legislature. You
Yeah.
made this mess, and you're going to have to clean it up. But yes, the Paid Family Leave Act had an earlier enabling statute that did pass, and then this one, what's in the Omnibus Tax Act are pieces of it and amendments to it and tinkering
Okay.
with it. So it wouldn't unravel the whole thing, but it would certainly make for a kind of a mess, which it
Yeah.
is, of course, to begin with, and help us, we hope, unravel this very, very unconscionable piece of statutory enactment that really can't be managed, can't be funded, is
Yeah.
driving people out of the state. Every business, you start tomorrow in your garage, Al, you got to comply with this statute. Probably you do right now.
Yeah. Amen.
It's wrong, and we're going to, hopefully, that is one of the things we're attacking in one of the cases to come. So there will be a change, we hope, at the highest level if the appeals court and the Supreme Court of Minnesota follow their own earlier precedents.
Yeah. All right. You had a Sorcan case.
Yes.
What is that about, sir?
Yes, it's a very interesting case. Polly Sorcan is a longtime school board member on what would have been the Eveleth schools. That's what people would understand. It's now called the Rockridge schools. It's a consolidated school district. She's been on their board. She's been a thorn in their side because she disagrees with a lot of the woke policies, and they're trying to shut her up. And they're trying to say, you can't serve on committees. You can't even come to the committees. Even when she had the seat on the school board, they were crimping her style and making it impossible for her to function as a board member. We're saying you've got some rights as a board member under the First Amendment. And so we're hoping the federal court will say, maybe a board can censure its members for things they don't like, but they can't knock them off committees. They can't do that. They can't shut them up. And that's the case. We're going to be arguing that in a couple of days, and we're very hopeful we get a good reading from the federal court on this violation of the First Amendment. We've got a lot of those going on in Minnesota. We know that.
How does that, again, my law degree hasn't come in quite yet. How does that end up go right to the federal government? And don't you have to go through the local court guy? I mean, how do you get the Fed court already? How does that work?
It's a very good question. We get there because the First Amendment gives us a right to go directly to federal court when we think it's actually being violated by state actors. And in this case, of course, we've got a school district involved. So that gives us a right. Now, some other kinds of cases, we go to state court, and then there may be a federal issue depending on what the state court does. We had that happen with our Marcus Todd case, where the union, the AFSCME union, has been taking money out of his paycheck without consent from him based on a forgery. And we tried to get the federal courts to act. They won't do it. And so now we are going to state court to say, well, this is at least a wage theft here, and we're going to get somebody held to account on it. And so we hope to get a solution on that one as well. And I think we will ultimately get it. But, you know, it's a very complicated situation, state and federal jurisdiction under the Constitution. But yes, we do have the right to go directly to federal court very often, and we do. But on things like the Omnibus Tax Act, that's a purely state law issue, state constitutional issue. So that's where we are.
And what is this Simply case? Is it the Swimply?
Yeah, Swimply is, in short, it's like Airbnb for backyard pools. So homeowners who have a backyard pool, this outfit will help them set up a system where they can basically rent it out for a day for a birthday party or something like that. And it's a very good feature. Actually, my daughter happens to be using this system. And so it is something that is a great boon for homeowners, and it helps defray the cost of maintenance.
So what's the case?
No skin off anybody's nose. But the state says, oh, no, you got to act like you're a hotel pool and have a lifeguard and have a derrick to get people in and out of the pool if they're disabled, and do this and do that. And we say, that's not what the statute said. You can't do that. And we're going to sue you to say no law behind what you're doing. It's lawless. It's overreach. Can't be done. You didn't even promulgate a rule, which you couldn't have done because you didn't have statutory authority anyway. But both reasons mean they can't do this, we think. And we're hopeful we're going to get a hearing on it.
It is the different stuff you talk about in a given day is just crazy to me. Swimming pool law. Holy smokes. I had no idea. I love that. If someone were listening and saying, hey, what he's talking about, I'm in on that. I'd like to be a part of it. The omnibus bill has a ton of different things. Or if they just think they're their rights are being violated, how do they get a hold of you, Doug, and say, can you look at my case? I think I fit in your group.
Yes, they certainly can, Al, and we invite everybody to do that. We do our best to get an answer to people when they've got an inquiry for us. They can reach us at our basic address, which you show on
UMLC.org.
UMLC.org. That's
Okay.
the best way. Get us an email through that portal there, which you can find easily on the website. Tell us what the story is with a little bit of facts so we know what we're talking about, who the parties are, if you're willing to be a plaintiff yourself. Sometimes people just say, do something about this, will you? And all we can say is we can't do it without somebody standing up as a plaintiff. We're not the plaintiff, but we're willing to do it. And that's what happens. Or they can just mail it to 12600 Whitewater Drive, Minnetonka, 55343. And we'll look at them all and do our best to help. And if we can't bring a suit, we'll at least tell you what we think you can do.
See, it's such a great starting spot. So UMLC.org, go there. If you also like what they're doing, you can always donate at the top of the page. We'll talk more about that coming up in a second. If you don't mind, because again, I'm trying to get my law degree via the radio. I would love to talk with you about what happened in the legal Spiegel mind. Don Lemon coming to town and doing the church interview. I'm going to put that in quotes, the church interview. Yep. And where does that fit? Minnesota, was it breaking and entering? Can we talk about that case? Do you mind?
Absolutely. Happy
All right, folks that are playing along, trying to get our law degree, we're going to get really smart in a moment. It's Doug Seaton, the Upper Midwest Law Center. More after this.
Are you tired of government overreach and the constant threat to your constitutional rights? The Upper Midwest Law Center is your legal sword and shield. We're a nonprofit law firm fighting every day to defend free speech, religious liberty, and the rule of law. We secure landmark victories that restore school neutrality, protect property rights, and hold government accountable. Our mission is to ensure liberty endures for all Minnesotans. So if you or your business is facing a constitutional violation, we want to hear from you. Learn more and support our work at umlc.org. Easily offended? The Al Travis Show is not for you. The Al Travis Show. All sides are welcome.
All right, people are going to understand my sneaky ways. I get Upper Midwest Law Center, come on the program. Doug Seaton, great legal mind. because I get these questions all the time in my head and I don't know the answers. So I get them on the program so I can hold them up to these questions. Sir, not a great mind, but I know the First Amendment. It's freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, to peacefully assemble, and petitioning your government, right? There are 5 things. Yeah. So if a Don Lemon comes in and he's using his freedom of the press, but he's using it on the freedom of religion, which one comes first? Is it because of the order they're in? Which is more important? What happened in this whole Don Lemon thing?
Well, it is a bit of a tangle, but I think Lemon is in the wrong ultimately on this. Some people call the right to practice religion the first freedom, and there's something to be said for that. That's why most of our forebears got here in the first place, the originals. So what happens in this case, I think, is there's a constitutional piece, there's a statutory piece called the FACE Act, and I think in any event, the people who are literally disrupting the church service, confronting and maybe even pushing around people who are the actual congregation are in the wrong. They're violating that statute, and they're also violating, if they're involved with a state actor, they're violating the First Amendment in terms of the rights of religious practice and expression. And so, no, I don't think Lemon wins on this one. I think he's in the wrong. He's certainly not able to trump the rights of that congregation by saying, we're going to just come in here and take over, and you're going to be subjected to our questions instead of conducting your worship service.
Is the precedent of the FACE Act, because can the FACE Act override, this is where I presume is lawyer, wait a minute, you can have the FACE Act, but it overrides my guy's freedom of the press. They've used that FACE Act. Biden's people use it against, if I'm not mistaken, people praying in front of an abortion clinic just because they were praying there. Those people were facing this FACE Act. Can you hide behind the First Amendment and get around this law? That's what they're going to go with, right?
Well, the law itself says that it isn't meant to curtail First Amendment expression. So there is definitely a line where you go from, the peaceful protest to obstruction and interference and trampling on the rights of others. We all know there is that line, or there used to be at least. And many of our protesters don't seem to observe it much anymore. Once upon a time, I protested against segregated housing and apartheid investments by my college in South Africa at the time. And that was all peaceful. And I took my medicine. I got hauled away and arrested a couple times. That's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to get in the way of people and force them to listen to you, or force them to stop doing what they're doing because you're protesting. That's not the way it works, or did work once upon a time in terms of civil disobedience.
I don't want to put you in a big trouble here, because people are going to write me letters, I have no doubt. But this also hits in the state of Minnesota, this peacefully assemble, right? That is a right in the First Amendment. But what we see is these protests, are they peaceful? And I say this, a sign and a phone, I could care less. You can chant and sing all you want. But even these whistles, when people massively whistle to disorientate, have we gone beyond peacefully? They think they have a right to protest. That isn't in the Constitution. It's peacefully assemble, right? Am I missing something?
No, I think you're right. I think the line has been crossed in many of these protests. As I said, my example from the 60s is, maybe you walk around in a little line, like a classic picket line, but you got to let people in and out. You can't interfere with their rights to egress and ingress. You can't interfere with whatever they're actually doing. That's not allowed. That's a sit-down strike. If you look at it in labor terms, it's not the same thing as a peaceful protest. And no, we've pushed past the line. These protesters are constantly doing that and interfering with police operations, following their vehicles, blocking them off, cutting them off, trying to contain them and force them not to do what they're doing. That's not peaceful protest in my view. So I think they're going to be subject to police action if we ever have police action anymore in Minnesota.
It is going to be an interesting one to find out. So I'm going to put these words in your mouth. So you're saying, should you shoot fireworks at a cop? You're saying that's not peaceful protest? That wasn't something we could do in the Constitution? Okay, I just want to make sure.
I think not. I think not.
All right, fair enough. I love what you guys do over there. I think the Upper Midwest Law Center absolutely is the cutting edge for Minnesotans who want their rights back. If you've got a case, you think you have a case, Upper Midwest Law Center, UMLC.org is where you go. And as far as donations, if I'm not mistaken, because I think you've said this before, you're 100% on donations. This is
absolutely 100%. It's all confidential and it's all tax deductible, and we are supported in the main of more than 2/3 by individual donor donations, and we're kind of unique in that respect in the country. We have a few foundations that have found their way to us too, and we're glad to have them, but we really rely on individual donations. People can sign up for a monthly contribution if they want, a number due, or they can just send us a check or put some money into that Anadot portal that you mentioned earlier on our website. And
Well, me, I get my free law degree. I don't know how long. If we do this for 5 or 10 years, could that be enough? Like, and then some law school just say, "Al." I think so too. Great, it's UMLC.org. Donate. Do it today. Doug, appreciate you being here, my friend.
Thank you, Al. Glad to be with you again. You take care.
You too.
That's the Court Report with the Upper Midwest Law Center, with some insights into their mission to defend liberty and the rule of law. For more information on the cases and issues we discussed today, and to learn how you can support their fight, visit UMLC.org. We'll see you in 2 weeks.